welcome to Adapted, the show where we discuss adaptations of various forms. My name is Tom, and with me is
Pat?
so Maurice Maeterlinck was born in Ghent, Belgium in 1862. He practiced as a lawyer in that town. While staying in Paris, he began to associate with a number of writers and then just decided to establish himself there. He published his first book of poems, Serré Chaud, which translates to Ardent Talons, for whatever reason, and his first play was produced in the same year, La Princesse Mélène, and this resulted in overnight fame. It was a huge success. He developed a huge collection of dramas through his early period, including a lot of kind of symbolist stuff. With The Bluebird of 1909, he turned more towards fairy tale optimism, and Bluebird was premiered eventually in Konstantin Stanislavski's company, which we'll get to in a second. His most famous book, though, was The Life of the Bees, which was released many years earlier in 1900. He also released a version of that book for children, which I've read a decent amount of. I haven't read the whole thing, but I read a decent amount of,
Did you
which
read it
is
before this or did you read it for this?
I read it for
Oh,
this, and
interesting.
it's
Okay.
it's a lot of details about how bee communities work and what the bees think of each other and so on and so forth. It's very similar to like combination of a fairy tale and a
Animal Farm?
it is an Animal Farm because there's no plot.
Oh, I didn't know
Um,
if it was just like, yeah, like these bees are mad at these bees and these bees are planning a revolution against the queen. Anyway,
it
I
it is fairly accurate, at least he's trying to. He actually was a beekeeper, and it's fairly accurate, except it gives sort of humanity to the bees in order to describe actual bee behavior. There's a book from the 17th century, and I just forgot the name, and it's similar to that. It's a book about fishing. You actually, I think you've read it before, Pat, and it's about two people who are in one of
The Complete Angler?
the Complete Angler.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's very similar
Yeah,
to
yeah.
the Complete Angler.
Oh,
Uh,
interesting. Okay.
yeah, in that field. I don't think it's quite as good. The Complete Angler is this sort of like, in order to
Complete Angler is a
understand,
classic. Yeah.
it's a
I think it's
great
one of those
book.
books that was like really well known for a long period of time and just vanished.
Yeah.
We lost a lot of those, I think, in the 30s and 40s and 50s.
It reminds me of that. It's a real interesting thing, even though I know we're not doing anything with it. But afterwards, and after The Bluebird, he turned towards philosophical essays, experimenting with socialism. He became really interested in socialism. And then he became a count. In 1908, we saw the premiere of Bluebird. So not 1909, excuse me,
How did he
1908.
become a count? Did he buy it? Or did
I think
he
he was
buy the opposite?
awarded. I think the King of
Oh, he was
Belgium
okay. Okay, that makes
awarded
sense. Yeah,
it
yeah.
to him in the mid to late 1930s. I think 1936.
Okay,
They
got it.
just gave it to him, and he was a pretty famous guy. He was a pretty big deal, and part of it was the Bluebird. Konstantin Stanislavski, who is the famous inventor of modern acting and modern realistic theater, decided to direct a production of this. We both looked at the costume designs of this. There's photographs of the original
They are
costumes.
so cool.
They're amazing. And I would
They're
say
stunning.
if you're it's hard to describe. So if you're listening to this, just pause the recording or do it while listening to the recording and just look up Stanislavski. You could figure out how to spell that. The Bluebird. They're wonderful, wonderful costumes. And
I actually looked it up initially because when I was reading the play, my initial reaction was, is this actually stageable? Was this meant to be staged, or is this something like Paul Claudel, where you're not actually meant to, it was never meant to be staged? Because I thought, I'm not positive you can stage pieces of already. Obviously you could, but I thought, I don't know if it was. And then I found out that the first production of it was by Stanislavski. And yeah, they definitely can stage it, and the costumes are absolutely beautiful. Really
yeah,
cool.
yeah, they're really amazing. And it was a great financial success as well, in part aided by the fact that Stanislavski made a shortened version for children. And so you had the adult version and then the smaller version for children so you can attract different audiences, which is apparently a very good business decision. Later, Maurice would become an outspoken critic of Catholicism. I have been trying to figure out exactly what he said, but it seems to be something along the lines of one, Catholics are lying about how history actually unfolds, which I couldn't figure out what that means. And number two, his socialism sort of took control of his philosophy and he became very invested in that. So on January 26th, 1914, his complete corpus entered the Index Liberarum Prohibitum. And he was banned. His entire corpus was banned for some period of time.
I suspect, having looked at that list, it does look. I mean, part of it, I'm guessing, is the fact that he won the Nobel Prize. I don't think if he'd won the Nobel Prize, anyone would have cared. It almost looks because there's a number of them that are on there that it seems like they win the Nobel Prize and then they seem to end up on that list. That I was looking at it when I just scanned it. Like I think a number of the ones we're doing later, like the creative evolution, is on there. Gide's on there. This guy's on there. There was another one on there that had got put on there like right after he won the Nobel Prize. And like, I get the feeling that it might have been a little bit of this guy was an outspoken critic, and no one would, it wouldn't have really mattered except that he wins the Nobel Prize and suddenly he's famous. And so they feel like the need to just stick him on there just to be like, okay, no one read this guy. He says bad, he trashes us elsewhere. Because reading Bluebird, I mean, I guess we can get into it in a little bit, but like maybe there's something there, but it's a pretty weak claim.
He went after the Catholic Church directly. I
But
don't
that's, I mean, he
really.
did, but
Mhm.
I don't think all of his, at least this particular book doesn't really seem to have any.
Oh, right.
This, I mean,
Yeah.
this work has
Mhm.
nothing to do with it. So it's sort of like, and he was probably doing that well before this. It's just because he won the Nobel Prize, I think, and then it
Mhm.
was, well, now he's famous and he's going after the Catholic Church, so they felt the need to stick him on there.
To do it.
That's
Yeah.
the impression I get, but
Yeah, he became kind of a famous intellectual of sorts in his day, and this was amplified actually during World War One, which goes to your point. I mean, he's banned before World War One, so possibly that that makes a lot of sense. But his fame actually took off during World War One. He really supported the war. He was incredibly critical of Germany and went after them and demanded that everybody go fight Germany. Later, Samuel Goldwyn, who was one of the MG, the film producer Samuel Goldwyn invited him to come to the USA to produce film scenarios. We have a few of them, but his film scenarios never went anywhere. They didn't become productions. He would later return to America, stayed there during World War II to avoid the Nazis, returned to Nice and died there in 1949.
oh,
All
nice.
right. Yes, good for him.
Oh,
Yeah,
niece, niece, nice. Oh,
oh, yes. He
Lord, man.
yeah, he had some affairs with women. His second long-term girlfriend, I guess we will call her, was the 18-year-old star of Bluebird. And so he had some kind of notoriety for his time with actresses as well. But otherwise, that's kind of his story. And let's jump into this play. So, Bluebird, it is a somewhat strange play intended for children. The plot involves two children who are something, a brother and sister, and something like in a dream. We think they're in a dream, and they're given a crystal by a fairy who wants them to find a bluebird to give to another girl to help the girl. And the diamond they're given summons out the spirits of different anything, actually anything in the world,
Anything, yeah. It
animate,
allows you to
inanimate.
see the essence and talk to
Mm.
the essence of
The
everything.
soul, it brings out the
Yeah, the
soul of
soul
things.
of the thing. Very
And
platonic.
yeah, yeah. And so they have to bring out the soul of the thing, and then they have to find the bluebird, and they take with them their dog, who is now animated and speaks, their cat, same thing, their bread, their sugar, their milk, their water, Light, which is sort of a maternal figure in this, and is treated so in the films as well. Uh,
Fire
who
and
else?
water.
Yeah,
Fire and water.
Fire and Water come
Yeah, fire
along.
and water, fire and water, sugar, milk, bread.
Hmm.
uh, dog cat
Yep.
light.
There you go. And they go adventuring looking for bluebirds. And wherever they go, they tend to find a bird, but it either loses its blueness or loses its life when it's taken out of whatever scenario they initially find the bird
Or they just can't get it in the place where it is.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they kind of do that and they run across all sort of strange worlds. It has a sort of Alice in Wonderland type thing, except well, Alice in Wonderland usually has paradoxes. The situation kind of doesn't make sense, or it's a sort of incomprehensible riddle. Everything here has a sort of metaphysical sensibility about it. There is one scene where they visit their grandparents, and the idea with that world is that your
The world of the
grandparent,
past. That's in
the
the
world of
past.
the
So they go.
past.
So we should also be clear. It's very clear as this story goes on that the bluebird is happiness. So they're trying to figure out where human beings can find happiness. And so they say, maybe you find happiness in the past. Let's go to the past and try to find happiness in the past. So yeah, they go to the past and they find their dead grandmother and grandfather.
And with that, the grandmother and grandfather sleep until someone thinks of them. And so we get this idea of the people of the past are still alive. There actually is no dead. At one point, they go to the graveyard and there's no dead there. Nobody's dead. But if you stop thinking of someone, they go into a slumber and they will continue to be in a slumber until they wake up. Things like that populate this world.
At one point they go to the kingdom of night. So they go to night, and the we also should be clear, of course, most of the things that have been woken up are sort of against the children. They don't want the children to find the bluebird, because if they do, they'll be put back in their sort of they'll lose their ability to walk around and talk. So they don't want them to go. The only ones that are helping them are Light and the dog. The dog is, in my translation, calls him little God. He runs around after the child calling them little gods.
Yeah, the dog calls the boy little god.
So they will help them. The other sort of entities will hinder them to some extent or another, or aren't particularly helpful, except for the cat, which I do love. The cat, having had many cats and owning two cats now, the cat is actively antagonistic. It really doesn't like the children and doesn't mind seeing them harmed in order to prevent them from getting whatever it's supposed to be. So they go to the kingdom of night, and we find out that night sort of hides all the secrets of man. She has all these secrets in her rooms. And but any man that goes to night and demands to know nature's secrets, night has to let them see them. If the children demand it, night has to let them through. But the cat says, just just scare them, just show them all the horrors of everything that they asked to go see, and then they'll be so terrified they'll run away and they won't find the bluebird here in the kingdom of night. And that's where it's like, behind this door is war, and then they open it up and they see war, and they're like, don't let war out. It has this sort of, as you said, he's a symbolist, so everything is a symbol. And it's things like that. It's like, this is the realm of the ghosts. But the ghosts get laughed at because the people don't believe in ghosts anymore. So the ghosts are actually easy to get rid of. And, it's just this idea that, I think that one of the doors has disease behind it. And it's just like, it's this idea of, okay, I get it. It's almost the opposite of Alice in Wonderland. Everything is literally what it says that it is. If it says it is a thing, it is that thing. And that's why it's this sort of, I feel like it's a platonic kind of concept here, right? That they're meeting these things in their form, in their sort of pure forms almost.
It is. It is and it isn't. I also saw a little
Sort
bit
of
of,
lazy platonic.
well,
That's what I was like, it's
yeah, I mean, I saw a little bit of Aristotle in it too. And I think so I guess my argument would
well,
be
that's just because
that,
everything that Aristotle said that was good, he just stole from Plato, and Plato just wrote it
well,
better.
Plato has a kind of a different view on the soul
I
than
know, I'm
Aristotle. Yeah,
kidding.
yeah, no, I
Yeah,
know,
I'm
yeah, I
just
know you're joking. I mean, Plato's just more
it's
interesting.
just more interesting. It's just better
Apparently,
written.
Aristotle wrote dialogues. We just don't have them. We lost them all. All we have are his students'
students'
notes.
notes from his lectures, which I understand why. I
That's just
enjoy
true.
reading Plato. I
Yeah.
don't enjoy reading Aristotle, but I'm joking. Aristotle
Yeah,
has
of course.
plenty of good thoughts.
Well,
Um,
we should, I mean, part of the reason that the cat is so antagonistic is the cat says, and this is early on in the play, if, and you just mentioned this, if they get the bluebird, for some reason, we will be completely at their mercy. And so she says, that is why we retain a remnant of independence. But if he finds the bluebird, that's the boy or mankind, he will know all, he will see all, and we shall be completely at his mercy. This is what I've just learned from my old friend and knight, who is also the guardians of the mysteries of life. And so there's this kind of idea that knight and cat realize, which is everything has a soul, but souls have sort of rankings, and that if man kind of figures out his place in the world via the bluebird for some reason, um, then these other souls, cat, milk, water, night, whatever, they will
bread.
be bred. Yeah, they will
I
be
love that bread is walking
bred
around
as a soul
in
with a big
like a
fat
turban.
belly.
Yeah, he's supposed to be fat with a turban and like a robe on, and he
And
just keeps pulling loaves of bread out
out of
from
his
his robe.
stomach and giving it to people. Yeah. But there's this kind of idea of, I think where it's a little Aristotelian too, is there are levels of soulfulness. Like there's certain things that are, that rank beneath people. And, the dog seems to be, and the cat seems to be more soulful than other things, which is in keeping with kind of Aristotle's concept of how, what a soul is it's the animation of material towards an intended end, which seems to be what's going on here. But there's also, as you're saying, this kind of Platonic thing of like you're seeing but you're not really seeing the form itself. You're still seeing an individual thing.
Yeah, I
Um,
guess so. But I guess it's like, I mean, when you go and say like we're going to meet night, it's not
yes,
like
yeah, you're not
this
going to
night.
meet
We're meeting night, and
night
that over
itself.
there is war. You know,
Mhm.
that's war. Don't let out war.
War.
You know, that's disease. Like it does seem to have a certain that's time. You know, they meet time at one point. There is certainly, and when they go to the luxuries are actually kind of fun. They go to meet the luxuries, which include like I like the luxury of knowing nothing.
Mhm.
There's like different luxuries. The luxury of eating food when you are not hungry. The luxury of knowing nothing. It's like the luxury of saying nothing. There's all these different luxuries that they meet. But but it seems like they're supposed to be like that is the thing. It's just it is the thing in a personified form. So some of it is exactly what I mean, this is just kind of where I think it's just muddled philosophy. This is where I don't think he's actually building us or proposing any system. He's just sort of muddling philosophy and symbolism and just kind of being like, yeah, it doesn't really matter no one's really thinking this thing through. It's just a way for him to present different ideas that he has in a sort of direct manner.
Yes, I think so because the soul stuff, it's compelling, and I just really like the idea of if I have this diamond, I can bring out the soul of something and talk to it and
Yeah.
sort of, and if I have the bluebird, I can make the soul submit. Like that's a really cool idea to look at water and say, well, no, water has a soul. And in certain instances, there are individual souls. Like it's not any dog, it's a particular dog.
That is this dog. Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
all dog. It is Tylo, the dog
Yeah.
Tylo. And I mean maybe that is to your point that there is an idea that animals have an individuating soul. Their souls are individuated. Bread is not individu. I'm gonna go with individuated, right? I'm
Sure.
gonna go with
Yeah, I think
individuated.
that's a word.
Yeah.
Um,
So, the dog has a soul that individuates it, that it animates this dog, and it is that dog's soul that he sees. But with bread, I mean, bread is bread is bread is bread. Now, obviously, they're not actually interchangeable, but there is no, it doesn't have each loaf of bread does not have its own telos. You know what I mean? In that sort of Aristotelian sense, it is just the soul of bread. It is just the soul of light,
I think
right?
yeah, I think so. Well, I'm not sure because at one point bread has to go back into like a container or a dish with other bread. And it's like, oh no, I can't fit with the other bread. And like, oh,
Oh, does he say,
don't
can I?
worry.
I don't think he says I can't fit with the other bread. I thought he just says I can't fit back in my bread tin.
Okay. Or his bread tin. I took that as, well, this is an individual loaf. This isn't the
Yeah, I guess I took it
abstraction
to mean
of
it was
bread.
all bread.
I didn't, so I took it as certain things like night is all night, right? And the war is all war, obviously. But I thought,
But I think the only reason I would have to disagree is because when they talk about bread, it's like you'll see me all the time. You'll see
mhm,
me on your table. You'll see me over here. It's not once you eat that one loaf of bread, I'm gone.
mhm.
He's
Yeah,
not
that's
that
true.
loaf of bread. He's all loaves of bread. Water says the same thing. Like you hear me, you always hear me. You hear me everywhere you go. I'm always there. And fire says, "Oh, you'll see me in the fire tomorrow." It's not that fire that's burning right now. It's all fire. So I feel like those things just don't have their own individual identities. They are all bread, all sugar.
And while the anything that is animal kind of does, I can't think of an animal
Does.
that isn't that is an abstraction or an ideal.
Because I think
But
there's only two in there. The only ones you
just
have,
the cat and dog.
the
Yeah,
cat and the dog.
yeah.
I can't think of any others. The trees have a little bit, maybe. You'd have to debate on that one because they would, in Aristotelian sense, they would have a soul, but it would be a different soul from the soul of the dog. Dog has a soul that animates it and gives it sort of appetites. The tree does not have appetites per se, but it is alive, so it does have a soul, but it doesn't have the same type of soul or the same types of
Yeah.
souls as a dog.
Well, Aristotle would say everything has a soul, right? Anything
He would, but
material
they
has a
don't all have the
soul.
same thing.
They
But
don't
that's
have,
the
there's
thing
a
is material,
ranking.
there's a
Yeah.
ranking. There's material that's anything that actually exists. Then there's anything
There's
that's alive but
vegetable,
doesn't
then
have,
there's
yeah.
animal, and then
Then
there's
there's animal.
rational.
So that, yeah, exactly. So it's like the
Mm-hmm.
trees would have an individual
Mm-hmm.
soul that would make that tree alive and the other tree alive. And if that tree dies, it loses that soul is
Mm-hmm.
gone. It's not destroyed in Aristotelian sense, but it is gone.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have just a dead tree. You just have a thing that was a tree. If the soul
Mm-hmm.
of the tree is gone, it's no longer a
This doesn't
tree.
count as a tree
It doesn't
because
count as a tree anymore.
it needs to be doing treeness in
Yeah,
order to
it has to have its
be a
treeness or it's
tree.
not a tree. And if it loses its treeness, that's what happens when the thing dies. So the same thing with a dog. A dog has a different type of soul, or at least it has more souls. It depends. I'm not sure if he ever is clear on whether it has a different type of soul or just multiple type.
Yeah, it depends on it's a higher rank because it can move towards something in a more particular way than a tree can. A tree is more limited. I don't know if it's more or less soul because I think just the soul is the material moving towards something, right? It's potential. It's a soul in a Aristotelian sense is the actualization of potential, which can't happen if you're dead. So I don't know if a soul is divisible from the material.
No, he definitely believes in he believes in my understanding of Aristotelian thought, and this is one of those ones I think it's very hard to understand it. I think the consensus is that he believes that a soul survives the body, but not in an individual sense. So and again, I think he would say the soul pre-exists the body and survives the body, which is also in this, that the souls of the human beings, they go at one point, they go to future. And in future, there's all these children everywhere, and they're the children who are yet to be born. And so they get to talk to all these children who are talking about like what they're going to do in their lives. So the idea that the soul pre-exists before the person is born. But I think in Aristotelian sense, it would say that the soul exists, it then animates the body that it animates, and then when it dies, it still exists, but it loses its individuality because in order to have individuality, it has to have a body. So without a body, it can't individuate itself. So it has to, but it still exists. It just can't exist as an individually distinct entity anymore without a sensory body to
Yeah, it kind of
inhabit.
goes back into lifeness or something like that. There's sort of
Yeah,
a
this is the
almost
problem
like
that
Buddhist kind of.
yeah, but this is the problem Christianity had with one of the problems that, the medieval Christians love Aristotle, but they have a big problem. This becomes one of the problems they have because A, they don't believe that the soul pre-exists the body, and they need the soul to have a meaningful existence outside of the body, even though they believe that the body will be eventually resurrected at the end of time and the soul will be reunited with the body. So it gets its
You still need an
eventually
individualized soul.
soul, because otherwise, what are people praying to when they pray to the saints? Is one of the big, it's like, what is that? You can't just go rejoin God in sort of a in an indistinct manner, because then the cult of saints makes no sense. So you have to have that, or else that doesn't make sense. And even just like individual, just heaven doesn't really, the idea of
Make
heaven doesn't
doesn't
work.
work anymore. Yeah.
But it does make sense that it would say no, but his idea that no, you still need the body in order to sort of be fully individuated does actually agree, because they do believe that you will have the resurrection of the body at the end of time. So I think that's my idea. At least I think that's what I thought was kind of going on here. And again, I don't think he's thought it through.
No, I don't. But I do think there's different classes of things in
Yes, I
yeah, in
absolutely think
terms
you're
of
right.
things. I think there's different like I think once you get to night is the example we keep using because it's a good one. I think once you get to night, you do have more of a platonic shift.
Yeah.
And it's sort of it's garbled together. I think it works very nicely though. I enjoyed reading this and I think it's a
I
lot of fun.
kind of liked the play.
Yeah, I like to
Yeah,
play a lot,
I
actually.
very much enjoyed the play. You know what it reminded me of? I don't know if you got this impression too. It and I thought I want, this is one of those things where, especially as we're getting into sort of the more modern literature, the stuff that actually seems like it was
You know,
influencing
10 years in, no, 10 years in Nobel Prizes now.
10 years of Nobel Prizes, and we're starting to get some reasonably decent ones.
They've all been winners.
Yeah, they all won. That is true. But this one, it reminds me of Brecht to some extent. Like, it reminds me of Brecht in the sort of episodic, this sort of epic feeling that there's no need to explain what's going on in between. It's just like, okay, now we're here in the kingdom of night, and now we're here in this place, and now we're here in this place. And it just reminds me of something like Chalk Circle or these other ones where it's just like, now we're at the bridge, now we're at an inn, now we're back in the city, now we're here. Like, there's no need to sort of fill in. They almost have these sort of dream, Brecht often has this sort of dreamlike fairy tale quality to him. And I kind of wonder to what extent, no, there's a lot more going on in Brecht, but I wonder to what extent that feeling of his dramas did he take from something like this, where there's just this sort of, it's very episodic. It feels that, yes, there is an overall goal, but it's individual chunks that you often could switch around. You could put them in any order. It also
See,
reminds me,
with
in that sense,
the movies aren't in the same order.
no. And the other thing it reminds me of for that reason, and this was actually the thing it reminded me more of, is voice check.
Hmm.
Uh, in the sense that voice check is this play from 1830,
Yeah,
right?
1830s,
1830 or so.
like
And
1836, something like that.
yeah, it's right around there. But I mean, who knows? Because I think he died before he
Yes,
finished it.
George Buchner is the
Yeah.
writer.
And so Buchner died while he was writing. Buchner died young. He was like 35. And the play just kind of sat in a trunk. No one knew it existed until it was found in 1890 or so. And it's not in order because it's just random sheets of paper. So they've tried to put it back together in what you think is the right order. And it's considered generally to be the first modern play, in the sense that if you read it, it doesn't feel like it was written in 1830. It doesn't even feel like it was written in 1890. It feels like it was written maybe 1920. Like, it's very modern, very weird, but it's very episodic. Like, you just have there's Wojciech trying to be fed peas by a man standing in a tower throwing peas down at him from the top of a tower. Like, that's one scene. And then the next scene will be him like in a brothel talking to a woman. And then the next scene will be him in a bar getting drunk. And then the next scene will be him at his battalion being berated by his commander. And then the next scene is him at the barber being shaved. And so you can kind of guess what you think the order of the scenes should be, but they're not you could switch them around and it would be
Yeah,
this, you could still make sense of it.
and
So
that's
it has a
happened with
feeling of something like
Kafka
that.
too. Kafka
Yeah,
also has that with the trial where there are certain scenes that have to go
that's true.
after
I didn't
or
think about that. Yeah.
before, but there's a lot of scenes in Kafka where they didn't know what order they were supposed to go in. There was also a kind of there was not in any order when Max Brut got that book, and so he had to put it together in his own order. And there's actually different versions of the trial. You can find different orders.
And maybe that's why I like this, because I
Mhm.
like the trial so much, that maybe that's why I like this play.
Yeah, and it has a different effect though. I mean, the episodes here are sort of like um so the dismissive way, I don't mean it to be dismissive, but I realize in my head it kind of sounds like that, is here's another amusement park ride.
Yeah,
Now we're going to the next amusement park ride. Here's the
yes.
next Disneyland event we're
That's
going to
that's
go
exactly
to.
what it feels like. Yeah.
And as a person who's not in love with amusement parks, that sounds
I
dismissive.
avoid them like the
Yeah,
plague.
yes, especially Disney World. Um, but I think that's what's going, and I think that's the difference too. While the alienation is the sort of consequence of Brecht or of Buchner or of Kafka, they're all the fact that the episodes don't add up necessarily to a perfectly linear plot makes them feel alienating. Here, it's much more like, here's the next wonder.
Fair,
Dot,
very
dot, dot,
fair.
next wonder, and so
Very
it's
fair. I don't think the effect is the same, but I
no, not at
do
all.
wonder if it had an influence. But I do feel like the effect is very different from Brecht, but I feel like the style might have had an influence.
Yeah, and I could see that. I could see them looking at this, Brecht looking at this, or Kafka would have been not looking at this, but Brecht looking at this and going, "Oh, he missed it. He
Yeah,
missed
he screwed it up. Yeah.
that actually this is not fun. This is scary. That I just jump into another land. This really disconnects me from history." And so the actual way to do this, or actually way to deal with episodic drama, is to draw attention to the fact that, it's really freaking creepy that we just keep jumping to new locations. It sort of shatters home. It shatters comfort. Well, this play is all about, not being at home is also, it's kind of fun. It's also, this play is
This
a
doesn't
lot
have,
more brutal than it appears on the surface.
yeah, I would agree with that.
And I think maybe that's something else if we're giving Brecht credit for, or giving Maeterlinck credit for inspiring Brecht, the that there's a lot of creepy things going on in this play. Or not creepy, maybe just sad. There's a lot more
Yeah, sad.
sadness.
It's disconcerting, it's sad, it's melancholy. There's a subdued melancholy sadness here of just sort of man's struggle and just the sadness that, and it's in the future too, even in the future. Like there's the great sequence which I really enjoy in the future where there's two children that say, "Please don't make us born because we're in love." And they call them like the lovers. And they say the boy I think is being taken away, and they're saying no, he's being born today, and he says, "But I'm being born too early and she'll be born too late. We'll never be alive at the same time." And there's just sort of this like there is a sadness to that because people just they just miss each other. There is an idea that, well, if people do have one person they're destined to be with, well, you might just miss them entirely. And there's sort of a sadness to that, I think, that exists there, and there's a sadness in the past. I mean, the grandparents episode is really sad
It's
because the
really sad.
grandparents
Yeah.
are just desperate to be remembered. There's just this, it's like it reminds me of like Purgatorio in Dante, where they're just like, please remember me, please go back and pray for me, remember me, remember me, remember me. It's all the people, it's all the souls in purgatory keep asking for is tell people to remember us, and that's sort of what I felt like here. That this afterlife is just not much of an afterlife. They just kind of sit here, they sleep until someone remembers them, and then they wake up very briefly, and then they go back to sleep when they're forgotten again. And there's a melancholy going with a lot of the ideas here.
Yeah. And because you're seeing it through the eyes of children, they don't have the capacity to understand that melancholy.
No.
But you do. And so with the grandparents, it's very nice. He's whittling something and they get to hang out, and
She's gonna make tarts
they're
and
going to make tarts, and the kid wants to eat more soup than he's allowed, and he makes a mess, and the grandfather slaps him, and the kid's like, "Oh, it's just like in real life.
it's just
Just
like
like
the
when
slaps you used to
he's,
give me.
he's overjoyed to get slapped." I mean, it's a kind of sweet scene, but the man at one point complains, "I'll never finish whittling this because nobody remembers me enough."
Yeah.
And it's like, that's pretty sad. And in the scene of the future, where we see the Tomorrow Children, the two children meet their future sibling. And like,
Oh, that's
oh,
really
it's
sad. Yeah.
really sad. They meet the kid, and the kid goes, "Yeah, I'm gonna come with cholera and this disease and this other disease, and I'm gonna die very quickly. And the kids go, well, why even bother coming if you're just gonna die that quickly? And it's
And the
really
kid goes, "Well, we don't get to choose.
Mhm.
We go." You know, and yeah, it's really sad.
Yeah.
And this the kids the one who's the sibling who's coming, because the idea is, yeah, all the every child has to bring something with them, an invention or something they have to bring with them from their sort of.
Usually giant fruit for some reason.
Yeah, which is yeah, I mean they're just they're bringing whatever they're gonna bring.
Mhm.
But so they all have to bring something, and yeah, they meet their future sibling, and their future siblings like, I'm gonna be your future sibling, I'm gonna be your future because it's different in the I can't remember now which it is because in the one of the movies it's a brother, one it's a sister, and I don't remember what it is in the play.
I think in the movie it's a sister. I think in the play it's a brother.
Yeah, I think it's a brother. But anyway, if it's we'll go with sister. So the sister says like, "Oh, I'm gonna come and can you are you don't make fun of me too much. Don't tease me too much. Please don't tease me." And they're like, "No, of course we want." And then yeah, they ask, "What are you gonna bring?" And she says, "Oh, I'm gonna bring three diseases." And she seems almost proud of it. Like, "Oh, I'm gonna bring three diseases. That's what I'm gonna bring. Yeah, cholera, scarlet fever, and like something else." And then yeah, she says, "I'm gonna die," and you're just like, it's really it's really sad. Um,
Yeah, it's and but the kids don't note the sadness.
no,
So it's a really interesting experience reading it because you're like, ooh, they are somewhat not the most trustworthy narrators or pivotal characters to follow because
we can't gauge our reactions from their reactions.
yes, thank you, yeah. But that's yeah, and even other things like
Normative character, was that be a normative character?
I guess a normative character. I think
I
of
guess that's
like I
what you
usually
call it.
use the
I don't
term
know if that's the right
pivotal.
word.
Yeah,
Did you use pivotal? I'm not sure what I would use.
I would the term I like the playwriting book term I think is pivotal character, which
Okay.
is the character who's supposed to be the voice or voice of the audience. And normally these type of children would be that. I mean, I think of like the Nutcracker, right? The Nutcracker,
Yeah.
when the girl goes back, she's just there to look at things, so we can look at things through her eyes.
And then we're scared when she's scared, or we understand that we're
Yeah,
supposed to feel
yeah.
scared or understand that
But
they're
she
scared.
doesn't
Yeah, I get
do,
it.
and she doesn't even have an arc of development really. But with this, it's no, you're not actually supposed to really see the things necessarily through the children's eye. The pleasantness they have at the experience is belying the kind of the sort of darker elements of reality. And not to say that the play's brutally dark or anything like that. It's
No.
just realistic,
I'd
despite
say it's
its
honest. It's a
symbolism. Yeah.
fairly honest play. You
Mhm.
know, the symbolism does get a little heavy-handed at
Heavy-handed, yeah.
times.
Mhm.
Um, but he balances it. It still works. Like it's not it's one of the more interesting things we've read, I would
Mhm.
say.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if it will survive another 100 years, but it's certainly an interesting
Mhm.
play.
Yeah, I don't know if people read it anymore or whatnot. Part of it might be the attempt at adaptations have been financial
Let's let's
disasters,
let's
and
let's
that's
jump
our
into the
transition.
adaptation. Let's transition into the movies of
Okay.
Bluebird.
So Bluebird was two silent films, and then we had in
Did you watch the silent films?
1940.
I didn't watch the
I
silent
did not
films.
watch the silent
Okay, good.
films,
Okay,
but
good.
1940, we saw Walter Lang direct a version of this for Fox. Fox made it explicitly to compete with MGM's The Wizard of Oz, and you could see this in the movie. The beginning of the movie is in black and white, and then when they go into the fantasy world, it is in Technicolor. They spent a lot of money on the Technicolor. And there's Shirley Temple playing
I've
the
never seen a
main.
Shirley Temple movie before.
I don't think
I
I
would.
have
I have
either.
never seen a Shirley Temple movie.
And she's perfectly fine in the
She's fine.
movie. They reverse the characters. Now
Teal
the
teal. It's the only way she's
girl,
the only thing that bothers me is when she's the way she's teal teal. We can't do that teal teal. Like stop saying teal teal. It's the way she says it. Teal teal.
yeah.
No.
But this movie wasn't.
Tylo. Teal teal.
I'll discuss my
Meetle.
favorite Shirley Temple conspiracy after in a second. The movie was a huge flop, but it got nominated for two Oscars for cinematography and visual effects. Um, the another so interesting story with this, there's two of them. One is in order to promote this, they did a kind of radio play version in a theater, and at one point, a woman in the audience stood up and pointed a gun at Shirley Temple and said, "You were born the day my daughter died, so you stole her soul. Her soul is in you, and I'm going to kill you to
Ah, so
get
the
it back."
crazies aren't
Yeah.
crazies aren't. This is new.
Apparently the woman got her birthday. So she wasn't accurate about that. The other one, this has nothing to do with Bluebird, but there was a rumor going around that Shirley Temple was actually a little person in disguise because of her stout stature and the fact that she never seemed to lose her teeth, which actually had to do more with dentures they kept putting in for her movies when she did lose her baby teeth, but whatever. And so the Vatican, the actual Vatican, in order to disprove this, sent out a priest to investigate if Shirley Temple was not an adult male little person.
Why did the
I have no
Vatican
idea.
either care or have jurisdiction to investigate?
I don't know why. I really wanted to learn more about that conspiracy, but I ran out of time. But anyway, that has nothing to do with anything. Let's get
Still fun to know.
It's still fun to know. Poor Shirley Temple, who then went on as a successful diplomat. She spent her,
I saw that.
yeah.
I saw that. I was fascinated by that development.
I guess that's like if you're a movie star, the only other thing you're prepared to do is be a diplomat. Mine just walk around, make friends, shake hands.
Yeah, you shake hands, you talk to people, and you write reports back on what people are doing.
Yeah,
Like,
good for her. That was also the guy who played Loomis in Psycho. The boyfriend also became a diplomat to Mexico, I believe, ambassador to Mexico.
I didn't know that. Isn't the boy, isn't his name Gavin? Isn't he Gavin?
I think the
Isn't that
actor's
John Gavin?
Gavin.
He's John Gavin, I
Yeah,
think.
John, he's Gavin. The character is Loomis. I think
Yeah,
Sam
but I think
Loomis.
the
Yeah.
actor is John Gavin.
Oh, all right. Yeah, very nice.
Yep.
Relation of yours is
He is not.
no shame. Um, yeah, but anyway, so we have this movie here.
We have a movie,
We have
yeah.
a movie. They're quite liberal with their treatment of the play.
I mean, that one just reminds me of a movie where someone, it's a script where someone read the play and then 6 months later was told to make a movie of it and was like, I don't really remember it. I remember, like, I got a few names and I know it was like bread. Bread was there. It was a dog. And
Was
I'll just,
bread in this? I don't think bread was in
I
this.
don't
I think
think bread was in
they had dog and
it.
cat. They had
They
the
had light.
fairy. They had
They didn't even have
light.
the diamond thing. It was just
They
like,
took the diamond out,
yeah, they
which
would
is
just like squint and you'll see their souls. Like I didn't
mm,
bother with any of it. It
yeah.
was-
No, they didn't. The cat was still a bad guy. The dog was exceptionally annoying. They have a
oh yeah, he
sequence.
struck me as like one of those like he was a comedian, I bet at the time. He struck me as he was probably a famous comedian in 1940, and it was like just put him in there. He can play the dog. We still got him under contract from MGM. So just we gotta use him in one more movie. Put him in as the dog and Bluebird. That's what it
Yeah,
kind of struck me as.
it's Eddie Collins who was the voice of Dopey in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Dopey speaks? I thought Dopey doesn't speak. Which one doesn't speak? No, yeah, I thought one of them doesn't speak. I
I
don't
don't,
remember.
yeah, I don't, I guess Dopey was not the one who speaks unless he collected a paycheck for not doing anything. Um, oh, okay. He is a live action reference model for Dopey in Snow White and the
That would
Seven
make more sense.
Dwarfs. Oh, okay.
That would
Yeah.
make more sense. He
Mhm.
certainly does look like Dopey. But
Yeah.
it's just like I just got the impression he was one of those figures that they just kind of stuck on there. Like I guess Mickey Rooney was a real actor, but it would be like I don't know if he put one of the Mark not Marks, even the Marx Brothers are pretty good. I'm trying to think of like somebody who's just a random comedian who just gets stuck in a role simply
Mhm.
because it's like,
Oh, like
well, they're funny,
George
put them in there.
Burns, I would think of.
Yeah, someone like that, or in like in Dogma when they had what's his name do the priest in
Oh,
that.
Carlin, George
Yeah, they had
Carlin.
George Carlin. It just kind of had that feeling of like just stick him in there. He's funny. He'll get a laugh because everyone knows his shtick, and some people go see the movie because he's in it. That's kind of the impression I got of him being there. He's annoying, yes.
Yeah, he's annoying, and there's certain things they don't do the soul thing, which is one of the more interesting things in the play. And there's also they dumb down other things. So example, the vulgarities, the kind of sins, the luxuries scene.
Yeah.
In the play and in the other film version we watched, it's they're there because they're tempted. The children are tempted by the luxuries. In this, the luxuries are actually imprisoning them, and they have to do a ridiculous escape scene and that type of thing. Um,
It felt like a like we need to raise the stakes kind of
mhm,
thing, and
yeah.
it was just stupid.
Yeah, we should mention one other change that we talked about too is that you don't have in the play. So there's a change between the play and both of these films, but more explicitly in the 1940 or exclusively in the 1941 is you don't have a pre-scene where the kids are in the real world. That's not in the play, that's in the movies. In this, they have the father before the kids go to sleep going off to the Napoleonic Wars. And you had
Yeah, we can't get
mentioned,
away from Napoleon, it seems like, for
yeah,
the
no, we
last
can't
few
escape.
weeks.
And you had mentioned this might touch on the sort of war beginning in Germany at the
Europe, yeah,
time. Yeah,
I assume they were making a World War II
kind of World War
reference, or
II type of
the
connection.
impending war, even if the movie was, I don't know when in 1940 it was released or when it was actually filmed, but if you were filming this in the summer or spring of 1939, I think they knew what was coming.
Mhm. Yeah. So that's a kind of modern connection. I don't know. Other than that, the impetus for making this seems to be entirely the Wizard of Oz. It's
Well,
just
I
we're trying
think
to make
they
money off the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, I mean, I think they wanted to give. Yeah, I think they were trying to make money off the Wizard of Oz, but I think which is it's a pale comparison. I'm not even a huge Wizard of Oz fan, but it's one of those. I think it's a wonderful film, and I appreciate it for its time, but I'm not really interested in watching it again. There are many other movies from that time period I would rather watch, but it pales in comparison. There's no sort of life in it. But I think they wanted to give Shirley Temple a chance to sort of act because there's nothing for them to do in the other one. I mean, they literally just kind of show up. I mean, there's a little bit of a chance to kind of be like, I'm brave and I'm going to open the doors in the kingdom of the night, but they don't really do very much. Um, you know, this gives her a chance to sort of she has a character arc. She has to go from being a selfish child who's not very happy with her adequate but not wealthy lifestyle and to come to see the beauty in everything. And so it's like, okay, we give her an arc. She gets to actually do something with her with the character. So I think that's why they're setting up the pre-scene, but as a movie, it's pretty weak. There's just not a lot. Even the singing isn't the songs are utterly forgettable. I'll say that for The Wizard of Oz. Those songs are memorable. I could sing them right now and remember every single one of them, but I could not do a single song from that thing, and it's a tantalizingly dull film. It just you kind of think like, oh, cool, Night Kingdom looks cool. I'm like, oh no, it's not. And they're like, ooh, the trees, maybe the trees, the forest. No, no, this is boring too. Ooh, the graveyard's creepy. Graveyard looks cool. You're like, oh
No.
no, it's boring. No, it's like you keep thinking you're gonna get a good scene, and then it's just dull.
Yeah, the trees just sort of fall on
Yeah,
them,
they
and
fall
it's
on them.
clearly the 1940 equivalent of a green screen. So they're just running in front of clearly nothing, and so it doesn't the movie
And then
is.
they kill the cat, which I wasn't expecting. They just have the cat get crushed by a
Oh,
tree.
but then it's fine. And then at the end, no, don't worry, audience, the cat is fine because she has 9 lives.
Yeah.
But yeah, she does
But
get
in the
crushed
movie
by a
they're
tree.
like, "Oh no, Tylette is dead." I'm like, "Oh my God, they just killed the cat."
Yeah. Her character doesn't exactly make a lot of sense because at times she's trying to get the kids captured, and other times she actually does aid them in their escape. So it's a little confusing, but it's also not that interesting, I would
No.
say. It's a very
It's
hard
it's
movie
a
to get through.
it's a weird this is where I think, we'll get to it in the end, but I think I don't think this play can be made into a movie, or at least not the way they were trying to make these movies. But yeah, so not very good. And then
Yeah.
there's our
Oh,
Soviet American production.
yeah. So this is from 1976. I have a little bit of backstory on this if you're
What? I mean,
interested.
was this just like a thaw? Like,
And
was
it
this
was
like a
part of the thaw
like is this the
thing.
attempt at ping pong diplomacy? We're not gonna have ping pong diplomacy. We're gonna have bluebird diplomacy.
So there was a cultural exchange program between the two powers, America, and the Soviets, and started in 58. And you had this one guy, Edward Lewis, who was a producer who actually owned somehow by this point the rights to Bluebird. and had made his name actually bringing up Kirk Douglas. He was the producer who kind of pushed Kirk Douglas's career on. And he had worked with Lenfilm, the Soviet film company, to develop this project. Um, the first attempt at this collaboration was between Warner Brothers and Igor Talankin, but it fell apart after 3 years of work. They just weren't able to get it off the ground. What you started to see in the late 60s was a few cultural exchange programs between the Soviets and other countries. The Red Tent of 1969 was a Soviet film starring Sean Connery. You had Sergei Bodrotkut's Waterloo of 1940. And then this was really interesting, a collaboration between the Soviets and Akira Kurosawa in 1975, a movie called,
That's interesting.
really interesting, Dersu Uzala.
Any
And that,
good?
I don't know, it won the 1976 Oscar for foreign language film. I don't think it's regarded as one of Kurosawa's best, but Kurosawa's bests are really, really
I
good.
think Kurosawa's. I mean, I don't know.
Hmm.
Yeah, Kurosawa's best are really good from what I
Mhm.
have seen. So I imagine he must have made some clunkers, but they're probably better than most
Most
things out
films.
there.
Yeah. But that's the one I really want to see is the Kurosawa Soviet collaboration. Um, and with this, Lewis had been approached by a Tower International Corp that was run by a Canadian named Cyrus Eaton, who, despite being a Canadian, had won the Lenin Peace Prize for trying to establish a peace between Soviets and America. Um, Lewis was hired, he had the rights to Bluebird, but also he had worked with the Soviets when making a movie in Hungary, this movie called The Fixer from 1969. And so he was brought on. Wasn't going well in 1969 when they started talking, but after 1972, the SALT agreement between Nixon and Brezhnev, things began to speed up. And then Len Films, which was the second largest film company in the USSR at the time, got on board. It looks like Lewis and Len Films split the money, each put in 1.2 million. Initially, they hired Arthur Penn, the guy who directed Bonnie and Clyde, but the Soviets didn't like him. They thought he was kind of too progressive. And so they went with George Cukor, who they thought was basically apolitical. He had no real political voice piece. So like that, it's fine. They also got on board because Lewis promised them that Marlon Brando would be in the movie and said he had Marlon Brando
Wow.
signed. I don't know if Marlon Brando signed, but I do know he did not show up. And so that's how it got
Was
started.
Brando was going to play the dad, I guess?
I guess.
Time?
I have no idea. My guess would be a number of things. But
You could play the dad.
he could play the dad and probably something else. The
You could have him play the dad in like Time or something, or just
mm, yeah.
Bread.
I-
Marlon
well,
Brando
he
as
could play
bread.
Brett.
Just Marlon Brando as bread.
Uh, you loved him as Stanley Kowalski. You liked him as Stanley Kowalski. You love him
Love
as
him as
Brett.
bread.
Oh God. And apparently it was a huge mess. I loved reading about this. So nobody was in
No,
charge.
you couldn't tell that this was a huge
So
mess.
there was nobody, like the Soviets nor the Americans were in charge. They both were in charge. So they came up with their own scripts and would just film from different scripts because the Soviets, like nobody could, the Soviets and the Americans couldn't agree on who had the better script. The budget ballooned to $8 million, which at that time was not only twice the budget of the average Hollywood film, it was 20 times the budget of the average Soviet film. Um, they also had no composer in charge, so they had composers competing. Then the American Irvin Kostel and then Andrei Petrov from Russia, just both writing scores. And what was funny was Kostel wanted to make a more Russian sound, and Petrov wanted the sound to be based on American jazz. They were just stealing from each other's cultures, but they
Which just
couldn't.
would have been much better with a Soviet probably
Yeah,
feel.
but they just kind of took sound from both scores and shoved them in there. They brought in Elizabeth Taylor. She got sick for a month and had to go back to
How did they get
Britain.
Elizabeth Taylor on this thing? Was
She
this
liked
just her like
Kukor.
career was
She was
just
friends with
disaster?
Kukor.
Okay.
No, I don't think so. And she had for a while wanted to do one of these kind of cultural exchange things. She liked Kukor. She had worked with him before. But she just got sick during it. She also apparently the Russian cinematographer was so bad that Taylor insisted everything be reshot with an American. And they did this all in Leningrad studios. Apparently, my favorite those stories of Jane Fonda. So Jane Fonda is Knight, and apparently she was just thought she was gonna walk into Soviet Russia and be welcomed as a hero for her left-leaning political stances. And one of the Soviet technicians, and what ended up happening was one of the Soviet technicians there goes, I'm just listening to this woman quote Lenin at me all day long. They had apparently she was just so disappointed that no one cared about Lenin or Marx anymore. And then she was also angry because apparently all of the Soviet technicians stop at 5:30 no matter what. And so they just unplug everything and walk away. And she's like, "We're in the middle of the scene. Why aren't they working harder?" And then, so I like Jane Fonda's stories
I'd
there.
never heard that, but that's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. So the movie opened, lost a ton of money, and it more or less destroyed any future Soviet American productions. However, it did really well in Australia, of all places, and even the Australians gave it an award for Best Children's Movie. No one seems to know why Australia was the one place this was successful. So there you go. There's some background to how the hell this thing
This
came
thing
up.
got made.
So what do you think of this movie, Paz?
I mean, it's not a good movie. The Shirley Temple one's better, I think. This one's just not that good. There's not even much to like, not much to praise. I can't even think of like Knight's kind of cool.
Mm,
I think Knight's
yeah.
kind of cool. Um,
Yeah,
the house was nice. I liked the house in the beginning. It looked very cozy.
it was a very
The
comfortable
cabin,
house.
the cabin they lived, but it
Yeah,
was just um it's
the-
bad. I mean, it's even like the dog. Why can no one figure this is where so why can no one figure out how to make a dog costume and not have it look like local community theater's dog costume?
Hmm.
I mean, it might as well have been like Harvey or something like this. His costumes are terrible. Why couldn't they get anything better? Um,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
it's weird. It's I mean $8 million. It looks like it does. It looks like community theater.
yeah, it looks like community theater. It's bad.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's just that I can't. I literally can't think of anything that's really worth praising. The scene, the future scene, actually was kind of nice. That was like okay staging, bright white with a big flower petal in the middle. Not that hard, but at least that was interesting. Um,
I liked Cicely Tyson as the cat. I think she was fine.
she was fine.
Yeah.
Like
Apparently she was an Oscar nominee. Um,
for this?
no, 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 just in
Oh,
life. I didn't know her at all.
I don't know
Uh,
her. Yeah,
yeah. I thought the luxury scene with Ava Gardner was really creepy. Um,
yeah. Actually, the luxury scene was better than the other luxury scene. I would
yeah.
agree with that.
Hmm.
That was creepy. Yeah, she just kind of like pulls him through and then like they're kind of dancing with and even the statement which is one of my favorite in the play, they have a great statement where they're introducing him, she's introducing him to all the luxuries and she's going, "Oh, this is the luxury of eating too much and this is the luxury of drinking too much and this is the they're going through all the luxuries." And then she says, "Who?" And then the boy says, "Who is that luxury back there, the one that's sort of hiding, her face and, sort of over there?" And they say, "Oh, that's a luxury we won't introduce you to until you're older." Okay, so it's like, oh, we get it, and that's actually clever. It's a good, again, this is where it's speaking to the audience, not to the children, and they kind of just ignore that luxury. And this happens in that one, and that's the creepy one because they're going around and she's introducing them, and she's pulling them around, and then she sort of says to this 10-year-old boy, and he says, "Who are you? What are you the luxury of?" And she kind of smiles at him and she's like petting his hair and she's like, "I'm a luxury you'll meet when you're older." And you're kind of like, "Oh, that's creepy."
Ooh, it's
And then she
really,
kind of
really
like
creepy.
steps backwards, like staring at him in this sort of funhouse mirrory kind of thing, and then just like dancing with the other men in the room. And you're like, "Oh yeah, that's creepy." There's just the luxury scene, the other luxury, the luxury scene in the in the Shirley Temple one, yeah, as you said, it's sort of weird. They just sort of give them ponies and a carousel, and then the children bicker and yell at one another, and the luxuries somehow become their like parents. And the only indication that anything's wrong is that the male luxury has gout, and
Yeah.
then they some reason need to run away from like the two soldiers that are there. It just didn't make any sense,
You're not
you know.
even
And
sure why they're imprisoned.
yeah, I just didn't get it. Like, and it just didn't have sort of this feeling of like this doesn't feel that appealing, and it doesn't feel that sort of eerie. In that one, you got the eeriness and the appeal. There is sort of this carnivalesque appeal to it that you could see why someone might go, yeah, I want to stay here. Look how much fun they're all having. But then there is also the sense of this fun is weird. This fun is uncomfortable. This is not a something's wrong in this room, in this scene. And that worked. I would agree. That was effective.
Otherwise, it's not much of a movie.
No.
I wonder, why don't you think this is adaptable as a film?
I think it might work on stage. I think this is the problem. I think this is a play. This is the Brechtian thing. You have to just celebrate sort of the theatricality of it. You just have to go and be like, it's bread. Look at him. He's big and fat, and he pulls bread out of his chest. Like you know, and he pulls bread out of his costume. Like, okay, that's it. There's no attempt at naturalism whatsoever because it's clearly not natural. And they do that all the time, you know, and even when they keep having the sugar keeps breaking his fingers off and handing them off as little lollipops and they eat the lollipops and this kind of stuff. There's a sense here that nothing is naturalistic. It's entirely symbolistic. The costumes, you know, you look at the costumes that they had for them in the Stanislavski production. They're creepy, they're eerie. Milk just has these giant finger things that are like hanging off of her. They look like obviously supposed to be like flowing milk. They're all eerie, they're all creepy. They're all sort of they're celebrating the fact that okay, clearly it's not this thing, but we're just going to celebrate that this is what it is. And that's why a terrible dog costume doesn't feel as stupid because what else are you going to do than have a man dress in this and not have him look like it's Spaceballs? Like it's just and I remember who is it's John Candy. Is it John
Yeah,
Candy?
John Candy is
Yeah.
the Wookiee version.
Yeah, the Wookiee version, like they're going to look like that. So if you put them in a movie, they're going to look stupid. There's just no getting around it. What else are you gonna do? And a movie is just it's trying to be movie. At least these movies are trying to be naturalistic to some extent, and therefore they just come across as wildly stupid. Whereas on a stage, of course, yeah, I mean, I get that the dog costume, it's a man in a dog costume. That's what I would expect. It's a play. And sort of you can celebrate the theatricality of it and actually have a good deal of fun with it. This is why I think claymation would work really well, because claymation makes no pretense to reality. It's not as if anybody's watching Wallace and Gromit. Even regular animation does sort of have a pretense to reality. Ariel looks like a human being, and walks like a human being, and many of these sort of things. Like yeah, there's certainly features of them that are unrealistic, but they generally look human. Wallace and Gromit don't look human. There's no there. That's sort of the fun of them. And so when you can take something that can never be done because of the combination of things on the stage and on the screen, they can never be done well in combination if you make them naturalistic. And live acting, unless I mean maybe like something like Pan's Labyrinth could pull it off, but for the most part, if you try to put naturalistic acting together, you end up with Cats or like the John. Didn't Johnny Depp do like that weird version of Alice in Wonderland that also kind of went into that uncanny valley?
He did, though I didn't see either. I think
I
maybe
didn't see it.
two of them, but
But I think it's that sort of uncanny valley-esque thing where it's like that's just Donnie Depp in a cat costume. Like this doesn't work.
yeah, and you could see that the film, the 76 film looks like a stage. Like all the
Yeah.
sets look like you're filming a stage production. It doesn't look like a movie even. And
No,
so
for
it,
the most
it
part, no.
and it just looks cheap as a consequence. It looks like somebody took it looks like the Olivier Othello, where they just took a camera,
Yeah.
filmed a stage, and there you go. And you know, I enjoyed the Olivier Othello, but not because of the camera work, but because you're just watching particularly good performances.
Yeah, and that's why I say, hopefully when we get to Eugene O'Neill, I'm hoping we'll do Iceman Cometh because and that's just us that's really just a stage. Like they didn't even bother with sets really. And that's why you're watching those. You're not watching them for the movie. Movies are different from plays. And this I yeah, you can't just film this like it's a like you can't film this as a movie like it's just on stage. It looks stupid.
Yeah, or you just have to do something, radically different but even there, why would you want to, right? When you have the immediacy of theater, when that
Yeah.
option is available to you, that's what's cool about it. That's
This,
what
I think, would be a really cool play, like
Mhm.
a really cool play. I would love to see this done like on the at the National Theatre in London or something like that. Like it would just be a really fun play to see done. And they often do like a kids show in this on their main Olivier stage. That's where Olivier was the artistic director there for years. And their main Olivier theater, they do a kids play. I would love to see them do something like this. Maybe they have recently, in the last 20, 25 years. I wonder if they have, because this would be a great play for the Olivier Theater to do.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this would be. I mean, you could do a lot with kind of modern tech on
Yeah.
stage as well. I mean, you really can make a kind of magical landscape to this.
Because they have the best rotating stage. They have like a dowel that have you been to the Olivier Theater in
I don't
London?
think so, no.
It's at the National. It's on the other side of the Thames, and they have this. It's a giant stage. It's giant, and they have they have like the spinning disc thing. Like that's just kind of the standard one. But the spinning disc can actually rise out of the ground like a corkscrew, and then you can just have an entire new set in the middle of it. And then the idea is then that thing, the corkscrew can just go and spin down, and then clearly below the stage they're changing the scene, and then the thing can just go and it can spin up, and then the entire new set is sort of magically there. So you could do for a play like this, you could do some really cool stuff. This would be a great play. Great, great. And as a play, interesting. It's fun to see sort of a early 20th century piece that I think was influenced by 19th century stuff and I think has an influence on later 20th century stuff. And I think there's just it's a fascinating little piece, but as movies, don't make them into movies unless you're gonna make them like can you imagine a claymation of this? It would be so wacky.
I,
It would be
there's the Soviet film from the 1970s that's animated. I haven't seen it. That might be something to look into. I know what you mean by there's
I'm not
still
even sure
a
animation I would trust.
naturalness to it. I mean, the
Yeah.
thing with animation though is, and you could see this now with a lot of the difficulties with the live action Disneys, is animation can do animals talking a little more.
Yeah.
So instead of
Much
the
better, yeah.
dog turning into a person, the dog could just talk. It's the same dog, and it just says things as opposed to.
I guess I just picture in a Disney world that still comes across as too naturalistic. Like it still comes across as weird.
Yeah, you don't have it doesn't it gets rid of the amateurish problem, but it
Yeah.
doesn't have the sort of surrealism benefit that the play is looking for.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else on, oh, do we want to,
Is this canon?
is this canon? So this seems to be in here because of the symbolic idealism, blah, 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 of the things that the Nobel Prize Committee liked during the first session or section or first generation of Nobel Prize winners. I don't know. What do you think? I would say, from my own perspective, I'm going to go with no. I don't think this endures, even though I think it is interesting. And I think it is far more interesting as a historical artifact rather than an artistic work unto itself.
The only reason I agree. The only reason I think it could be interesting is for pedagogical purposes. Like this could be an interesting because I don't even know the first time when I was in school that I read a play. Probably not like for school. Probably the first time I read a play was probably for like in high school when we were assigned like Romeo and Juliet. I don't think like we might have done one of those like stone soup plays in like third grade, and you might have done something like that. This feels like a play that could be an interesting one to have kids do in like fifth grade. Like you do Johnny Tremaine, you do this, and then you do Where the Red Fern Grows, or something like that. Like it feels like it has, and it's sort of obvious what the symbolism is, so therefore it's good for kids to sort of learn against. So I feel like something for that reason, it might serve a pedagogical purpose, and it might have a place in sort of literature for that reason. In for the same reason that The Outsiders, S.E. Hinton, has a place in literature. That's not a great piece of literature, but it's good for junior high kids to cut their teeth on and sort of learn. It's the same thing for Steinbeck. It's like this. It's good for sixth graders to learn how to how to read a book. But is it good just like Steinbeck? No, this is not. But is the Pearl worth reading when you're in sixth grade? Maybe.
Yeah.
And in the same way, this feels like it could have a similar function for theater.
Yeah, I could agree with that. Something of a low standard, but
I mean, this is
yeah, yeah.
again,
But
this
there
is
you
this is
go.
this, and I know, and that's my point. I'm not holding it up to a high, that's not a high standard, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have a place. There is a place for children to learn against, and this feels like a good play for kids to learn against. You can learn about dramatic irony. We know that the cat has told Knight something, but the children don't know something. How does that influence the scene? As you said, like even even that pivotal character, we see the scene differently than how the children see the scene. How does that impact? You could introduce a lot of theatrical concepts to children at an early age in a fairly blunt manner, a fairly blunt, obvious manner. And that's why this might have a place.
Yeah, I would agree. I think
Same thing
so.
as nursery rhymes have their place in our
Mhm.
canon because they teach nursery children. This could be our
Our
fifth
nursery
grade
rhyme.
introduction to theater.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, that sounds good to me. Any other comments on Bluebird,
That's all I
on
got.
the Soviet American effort to
Don't bother. Read the play. Read the play. This one was in plenty of I was able to get this one easily at my local library. Plenty of copies of this one and in my local library system. Read the play. Play is interesting. If you see it at your local community theater, go give it a watch. Don't bother with the movies.
If you enjoyed Bluebird and want to see more adaptations of this play, check out both the 1910 and 1918 silent films, as well as the Soviet 1970 animated film.
You can rate and review this show anywhere fine podcasts are available. For those viewing in YouTube land, if you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the Talking Studios channel for all our exciting content, and follow us on social media at Talking Studios. Check out other shows by Talking Studios, including Talking Pictures Trivia, where we explore movies through trivia, Keep Making Movies, where we explore micro-budget films, Limited Lexicon, where we play through text-based adventure games, and Get the Point, where we slowly reveal a movie poster and try to guess which movie poster it is. Got a question for us? Call the Talking Studios hotline at 201 467 8679 and leave a message. It may be featured on a future episode. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to Adapt It, wherever fine podcasts are found.
Join us next week when we discuss the 1912 Nobel recipient Gerhard Hauptmann and his play The Assumption of Hanel, as well as the Danish silent film from 1922 and the German sound film from 1934. See you then.
Wow, Talking Studios.
Next week, we'll be discussing the 1912 Nobel Prize winner Gerhard Hauptmann and his play, The Assumption of Hanal. Pat, if you had to hire someone to direct this play, God bless you, who would you
That's me.
direct?
Uh, I'm gonna go with David Lynch because
Really?
I think
Okay.
it would be hilarious. I mean, no one should direct this. No one should make this.
Hmm.
So, you know what? It would be funny if David Lynch did because it would be just completely and utterly insane. And maybe it would therefore be watchable. Let's go with that.
Let's go with that. Sure. I think I would go. So the two I had it down to were Del Toro, the guy who did Pan's Labyrinth, because there's a little bit of, I think if he made it creepier, it could be interesting. Even though, and like Pan's Labyrinth has a pretty simple morality too, as does this. Either that or an animated version like Miyazaki, one of his animated
Yeah,
versions.
that could be, like a sentimental thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, Miyazaki isn't, I don't think, as slovenly sentimental as this
No,
play is.
but
But I think if you were like to go into a flight of fancy with angels and the angel of death and things like that, you, maybe he could come up with like cool angel designs, and that would be fun
sure,
for
that
the
would be
audience.
fun. Yeah, that would be fun for the audience.
Yeah, but I think Del Toro would be actually legitimately fine. I think Del Toro could do like a creepy angel, right? Like the angel of death is a kind of a cool image. And that, if you had some creativity, that could be a lot of fun to see.